TitleMatchNetwork.com.
Welcome to another edition of the RF Video Shoot interview series. Today we're joined by a true legend in the sport of professional wrestling, Jimmy Golden. Thanks for being here today. My very first question to you would be: you come from a long line of wrestlers in your family. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, Robert Fuller and Ron Fuller, first cousins.
Right.
We grew up together and been wrestling ever since we was old enough to wrestle. I think my first match was 19, and Robert and Ron's somewhere in there, but we're close age with each other, and my mother and their daddy, his brother and sister, and then our grandfather Roy Welch was a wrestler, and that he kind of got wrestling started in Tennessee, actually over in Dyersburg, Tennessee, West Tennessee, and it grew from there and covered the whole state. He took a partner in named Nick Goulas, and they promoted wrestling in Tennessee, Kentucky, Arkansas, Alabama, Mississippi. They had a giant territory.
Right.
You know, and then there's Roy Lee Welch, who's a cousin that wrestled also. That's Lester Welch's boy, which is my grandfather Roy Welch, his younger brother Lester, and then he had two boys, Jackie and Roy Lee. They both wrestled, and then my grandfather's sister married a guy named Virgil Hatfield, and they had three boys that were outstanding in the ring. They were Bobby and Don and Lee Fields. I don't know if Robert spoke.
Yeah, he was talking about that.
They were very good in the ring. Just, you know, it's a family thing, and all the Welch boys, the Hatfield boys, and we're all very good in the ring. I grew up watching them. Robert and Ronald's daddy, Buddy Fuller,
Right.
him and one other Grandpa Roy's brother, Herb Welch, and Lester, and in Memphis, Tennessee. I used to go to matches in Memphis with my grandfather when I was a kid, and I watched all the family grow up. So I was one of the biggest fans.
I guess my question: did you know as a kid that you wanted to be a wrestler?
Well, yeah, pretty much. You know, there was never any pressure about it. You know, but you know, you grow up watching all these guys wrestle and admire them, and
Right.
and all the other guys that you'd see wrestle. It just kind of come. That's a very fortunate man to had a little bit of size.
How big was Roy on kayfabe back in the day?
Oh, Roy was very big on kayfabe. All the guys were back in the day. Most all of them. You know, kayfabe was serious business. You know, you didn't. It's all changed so much today.
Yeah.
You know, nobody kayfabe. Kayfabe died.
It's true.
And it, you know, it's not the same anymore. Back when kayfabe was alive, it seemed like things were a little more exciting.
Without a doubt.
Fans and stuff.
Can you talk about what it was like to be a promoter during that time period?
Well, I never did promote, actually, but you know, I went to the matches, the old Ellis Auditorium in Memphis with my grandfather. He was a promoter, and of course he wrestled for years before he became a promoter, and he was a well-respected man because he was a tough son of a gun. I mean, he had two giant cauliflower ears,
Right.
and they called him bag ears.
Huh.
And everybody, it's funny, he'd hurt his hip from wrestling for so long, and he walked with a cane, a metal cane, and you could hear him coming down the hallway. You could hear that cane clicking. As soon as you heard that cane clicking down the hallway, all the guys start turning around and put their back against the wall because he hit you in the head with that cane.
Wow.
You know, just kidding around, playing around, but he's a tough old bird, and he'd hit you pretty stiff with that cane sometimes. But all the guys, they didn't want to leave their back for the Roy Welch.
That's awesome. Do you have any early road stories that you could share?
Early road stories. Well, for myself, I started in 70. I got started full time in 70. And I guess the first big trip I made, I got to go to Japan for 3 weeks. Promoter out there in Los Angeles named Moto booked me and a guy named Sam Bass. We went over to Japan. We wrestled a week in California before we went to Tokyo, and then went on over. But there was a big group of guys. Bruno San Martino was one. Don DiNucci was there the first part, and then the two Funk Boys came over, and it was me and Sam and Dick Murdoch and Rip Tyler, and I'm leaving out a few. Mike Paducas was with us. He was reaching his latter part of his career at that time. And Mike Paducas was a heck of a guy, a tough son of a gun, and played football at UT. I think was on a national championship team. But what a trip we had. It was very interesting for me. I was just 21 years old. And, it was a very much a learning experience trip. I learned a lot on that trip. And then the following year in 72, went to Australia for 2 months.
For Jim Barnett?
For Jim Barnett. Robert and Ron's dad, Buddy Fuller and Eddie Graham, bought partners in with Jim Barnett in Australia, and I was lucky enough to get to go. They asked me to go and stayed over there for 2 months. Had a wonderful time and met guys like Brute Bernard and Gary Hart and Mark Lewin and a bunch of guys over there that were real nice to me, showed me a good time. Seen all of Australia. That's one thing about this business. You get to see a lot of the world.
Definitely, without a doubt.
If you want to.
When you started training as a wrestler, who helped you more, your dad or your grandfather?
You know, I have to give credit to all of them. I worked out with a lot of people. My dad worked out with me a lot. He talked to me a lot, which meant more than anything, I guess. Just talking to me. And my grandfather, I have to give him credit since we was little boys. He'd wrestle us up, rough us up in the house quite a bit. So I learned a lot from all of them, from him and the Hatfield boys and Buddy Fuller, my daddy. There was a guy in Louisiana that worked out with me, called him Fika. His name was Pancho Villa. An older timing Mexican boy that was very good and taught me a lot. And so, I had the opportunity to get in the ring when I was in Louisiana with a lot of different guys. And so I try to learn a little bit from all of them and put it together in my own style. And by watching, guys that I admired.
Right. Were any of the guys ever overly hard on you?
Grandpa Roy was rough on us. He was a lot of fun, but he roughed us up quite a bit, especially me and Robert.
A lot of the guys probably stayed with your father. Who are some of the guys that you got close with?
Well, naturally, family. Robert and Ron was really close to them because we're his family. But outside of that, there was a kid that I grew up with in Louisiana. His name was Ricky Gibson. He has a younger brother named Robert Gibson, who was one half of the Rock and Roll Express. Ricky Gibson was outstanding. He was a natural. Him and I got in the ring anytime we wanted to. There was a place called Sports Center there in Lafayette. And we lived close to it, and we worked there. We cleaned that building. We did everything there was to be done. Sold tickets, ushered, put up the ring. So worked in a concession stand, cleaned the building the next day when the matches was over with. So but the ring was always sitting there, and Ricky and myself had a lot of opportunities to get in that ring. Ricky was close. Ricky was a very good wrestler. He was so good that they wanted to. He had a chance to become the world's champion one time, and that's how good he was.
Did your dad's house ever turn into a big party scene with all the guys staying there?
Not really. Did have guys stay there from time to time, but no big giant parties or anything. Some good times, but nothing to brag about.
Talk about the influence of Frank Martinez.
Frank Martinez showed me how to drop kick. Frank was real good at throwing a drop kick. Me and him got in the ring, and I was just a kid, and he stood face to face with me, just inches apart. And he said, "I'm gonna jump up and drop kick you right in your chest," and he did. And he showed me how to do it. And that's the first one that really showed me how to drop kick, and he was good at it. I felt like I was pretty good at it too.
What are some of your memories of your first match?
I guess my first match was against the guy I was telling you about, Pancho Villa. I was way out in space. I was so nervous and so scared I couldn't relax. I was blowed up before I got to the ring. The match finally got started. Like I said, I was off and out of space in another world, and Pancho was trying to get me to relax. He was talking to me. He was trying to tell me to loosen up, and he brought me back to earth for a few seconds, and then I was gone again. And the match didn't last very long, and I was exhausted.
Huh. How close were you with Buddy Fuller?
Well, Buddy's my mother's brother.
Right.
You know, and Buddy I admired very much. Buddy was a very smart man. He was a great wrestler. He was a great promoter. He was a very good motivator. He was just an all-around sharp guy in the wrestling business and in other businesses too. He made a lot of money, and he was kind of like Barry Bryant to me. He'd get the best out of his boys.
Right.
You'd play hard for Buddy Fuller.
What are some of your early memories of Eddie Graham?
Same thing as Buddy Fuller. Every time I got around Eddie, I tried to be like a sponge and just soak up everything that I could, all the knowledge I could get from him, because he was brilliant.
Right.
As far as the wrestling business went. I thought made a lot of money. You know, I guess that's what counts. Had a huge territory in the state of Florida, and just all kinds of talent. I mean, from head to toe, from the first match to the end. You know, the wrestling fans would leave there most all the time saying, "What a great show."
Was there a time when your dad suggested to you to get out of the territory so you could learn some more?
Yes. He not necessarily in the territory that when we first started, it was in Montgomery, Alabama, and we both enjoyed being together, and he didn't press that fact so much then. But at other times when I was in Tennessee or someplace, that he suggested that I would go to other parts of the country and be seen. Well, he was right. He had a good point there, but I was having such a good time in Knoxville, I didn't leave.
Did any of the boys who ever had issues with your dad or grandfather ever try to take it out in the ring with you?
Not that I know of.
Okay.
Was never mentioned. I've had the hell beat out of me a few times.
All right.
For something else.
Was there any pressure on you ever to be being a son of a promoter and wrestling out of the territory?
I'm sorry?
I was going to say, was ever any pressure on yourself to be a son of a promoter and then be wrestling out of that territory? When you go to other territories, did you have a lot of pressure on yourself?
Not really.
Same as
You know, I guess I always felt a certain amount of pressure, you know, because for myself, that, you know, I wanted to do good, I wanted to try hard, wanted to make it as far as I could. I enjoyed what I was doing, so
right.
I guess most of the pressure that I've ever received came from myself. A few times, you know, maybe some of the other boys, Nick Goulas had told me before, you know, Nick actually gave me my first big break. And he had, you know, he put a little pressure on you sometimes. Oh, boy, you got to do this and do that, you know, work hard. But I like Nick. Nick was real good to me in my day.
What are your memories of wrestling Dory Funk for the NWA title?
Boy, I learned a lot in that match. That Dory Funk Jr. was, in my book, I guess, the best NWA champion ever had. In one match with him in Montgomery, he made me look like $1 million. I learned an enormous amount from that one match. What a first class guy. Just as nice as he could be.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was a very important match of your career too, right?
Yes. Yeah.
How soon after that did you start working with Robert and Ron Fuller?
Just shortly after that match with Dory, Robert came to Montgomery and wrestled in that territory with me and my dad, and was there for right at a year, I think. We were partners and some of the time, and so that was, I guess, the beginning of it. And we'd seen each other off and on, and then, but the main time that we really started was in Knoxville in about 74, 75.
Why do you think that Ron never attained the success you and Rob did?
He never what?
Attained the success?
You know, Ron was a successful man himself.
Right, Ron, yeah.
You know, he was like his daddy.
Right.
Very good promoter, a good wrestler. You know, he didn't have to be jealous of me and Robert. But we, you know, ever since we was kids, me and Robert always teamed up on him. Tried to beat him up, never could.
Huh.
He's too much bigger, a little bit older, a little stronger, a little tougher.
What was it like being on the road with those guys, Robert and Ron? A lot of fun, a lot of ribs?
Fun. A lot of fun. You know, we talk business a lot. What the next move was going to be. But, you know, we've always enjoyed each other's company since we was kids. Always enjoyed going to stay with them on their farm, and every time they come up to stay with us, we'd fight.
Right.
You know, a lot, but you know, kids do. We always mostly had good times, you know.
What are your memories about Dick Slater?
Dirty Dick. Dick Slater's a tough boy. Dick, I met him in Tampa in '72, I think, somewhere along in there, and he was one of Eddie Graham's boys. And Slater got in the business down there. I wrestled against Slater, and he was very exciting. He was a good wrestler, and I enjoyed being his partner. You know, Dirty Dick Slater and Bunkhouse Buck, WCW. It was a lot of fun. Terry Funk.
That was my next question.
Terry Funk, you know, Terry was first. They brought Terry in, and me and Terry Funk and Bunkhouse Buck just went together.
Yep. Did you like working with Terry?
Yes.
Early on in your career too?
Yeah. Well, you know, Terry was the champion too there for a while. Came into Knoxville and wrestled against Ron for the world's heavyweight title, and I'd seen Terry in Japan and different places. I had a lot of respect for Terry. I always thought he was a tough guy. He had me convinced, and enjoyed doing the partner thing with him at WCW.
What are your memories of Jim Barnett?
Jim was a nice guy. Jim treated me first class. Every time I ever wrestled. Now, I messed up. with Jim. I messed the deal up in Australia. I was supposed to go back for him and Buddy Fuller. And things, it was tough in Alabama, and I was kind of put in between a rock and a hard place. I had to make a decision. Am I going to go back or am I going to stay? I ended up staying. I should have went back because they had put a lot into Jimmy Golden in Australia, and I didn't go back. One of my big mistakes in my career. But Jim was nice to me, talked me into going to Hong Kong for a week after the tour in Australia. You know, Jim was a heck of a promoter. I guess Jim had one of the hottest territories in the country back in Ohio, back before my time. And I heard him talk about it. I heard Robert Ron's dad, Buddy Fuller, talk about Ohio was a fabulous territory because you got all in big cities within a small, confined state.
Right.
And it sold out everywhere they went.
What about Bob Armstrong? Some of your memories of Bob?
Bob's been a great guy. He was a partner in Florida and Alabama, along with myself and the Fuller boys. Him and his boys have always been first class in the ring. Great to work with. We beat the hell out of each other many a time, but I always liked Bob and his boys. They were fine people to work with.
Original Midnight Express, Dennis and Randy Rose.
Yeah, good boys. I enjoyed being with them every time. Dennis Condrey I always thought was a first-class wrestler.
What about Hulk Hogan? When you were in Alabama, he came through the territory with Brutus Beefcake, Ed Leslie. Were you there at the time?
Hogan, I think one of his first matches, if I'm not mistaken, Louis Tillett got him going. And one of his first matches was against Andre in Dothan, Alabama. I wasn't there at the time, but they sold out this big stadium outdoors in Dothan.
Wow.
And I didn't meet Hulk till later on in Tennessee, actually, in Memphis. He come through there for Jarrett.
Right.
Never did get to know Hulkster all that well until, later, and then got with him in WCW there a few times. But, Hulk's Hulk, man. Hulk had the size, and he could talk. And Hulk blew the roof off for New York, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Hulk was the man.
Did you? So you pretty much saw the potential that he had just from looking at him when he first came in through Alabama and all.
Yeah, guy was huge and he had great potential.
What about Arn Anderson? He came through the territory as Marty, using his real name, and we talked to Robert earlier on about how they made him an Anderson. What are your memories of Arn working the Alabama territory?
He's perfect for an Anderson.
Yep.
And Arn was, he liked Dick Slater, Jerry Lawler, Ricky Gibson, all them guys. They had a long list of guys. I was like a natural for the wrestling business. They just fit perfect. And Arn, he got scapped. He wrestled Bob Armstrong on Dothan TV one Saturday, and he glued a toupee, a little wig thing on the front there to cover his bald head. And Bob chopped him, and when he did, he kind of missed and went off the top of his head and took his hairpiece off.
That's awesome. What about Dick Murdoch?
Murdoch we'd love to watch him. Murdoch going to the ring, I always went out there to watch his match because you never know what you're going to get out of Murdoch. Me and Robert wrestled against him in Tallahassee one time, and it's fun. We were scared to death. We were just starting, and Robert was going to start the match with Dick, and Dick was saying, big arm drag, and Robert was scared. He's like, who? Am I going to get arm drag, or am I going to arm drag you? And he said, who, me or you? And Dick said, me, ignorance, who the hell do you think, boy? And here he come charging.
Right.
Murdoch he was hilarious.
How about Dusty Rhodes? Early memories of Dusty.
Yeah, same thing, Texas boys. I guess they were both from Amarillo.
Yeah.
And there's something about them Texas guys that, man, it was always exciting to watch.
Joe LeDuc?
And Joe LeDuc, you know, Joe was a great friend that me and Robert loved. We made a lot of trips with him. Joe was a big old strong guy that we loved to death, and he liked us. He seemed like he liked it down in the South, you know, and he did well.
What about Tom Pritchard when Tom started up?
Tom Pritchard was a great hand in the ring, you know, and Tom was with me in Knoxville here a few years ago. We had a deal called Rocky Top Wrestling, and I had a match against Tom. Tom's a good hand.
Ric Flair came through the territory in Alabama. What are your memories of Ric Flair early on in your career?
Oh, good matches with Rick. I wrestled against Rick maybe a couple times. I know one time in particular in Birmingham, a 60-minute man. We went close to 60 minutes, and I trained pretty hard to get ready for that match, and I tried to get mentally prepared. And I had to, you know, pace myself real well because Rick's a go-getter, buddy. We had a heck of a match. And we was right at 60 minutes before it was over with.
Wow. Did you like him outside the ring?
Yes.
What about memories of teaming up with Austin Idol, a young Austin Idol at the time?
Mike McCord
Yeah.
in Australia.
Yeah.
Mike was, you know, he's was just starting then at that time, and but Mike was. We had a great time in Australia. He struggled a little bit in the ring at the time because he was green. He hadn't had a lot of experience, and the guys that we were wrestling against, I knew real well. Dick Dunn and Don Carson, and so I think, you know, he had a little bit of trouble there, but you know, McCord, he turned out good in Austin Idol and went to New York, made some money, and McCord, you know, he turned out. It just took him a little while. Some of us catch on quicker than others, and some of us never learn.
Are you surprised that Austin didn't go further as Austin Idol? Like a lot of guys that we do interviews with, he was really hard to work with. He had a chip on his shoulder, and you know, in fact, Robert was telling us when he was booking that he was a pain in the ass. He always thought he was bigger than what he was.
Somewhat,
Right.
you know, but I never was the booker. Really.
Right.
I wasn't the promoter, so I didn't have to handle him.
Right.
I just thought I'd have a few beers with him and wrestle with him here and there. You know, so and he I guess he maybe was a little bit at the time, so, but I didn't have to deal with it. And you know, Austin, I'm surprised that he didn't go further. He's
Good talker.
Yeah, good talker, good man in the ring, and but I think Austin, right about the time that things broke up down there, and we all kind of split up, and he stayed in Pensacola, and I think he got into real estate.
Yeah.
Or something, and was doing well. So, you know, we all got to call it quits sometimes.
What about Bob Roop teaming up with Bob? What are your memories of teaming with Bob Roop?
I enjoyed Bob as a nice guy. He was a lot of fun. Me and him roommates in Knoxville for a while. Bob's a sharp guy. He knew how to promote and do the booking thing, and you know, and wrestle too. You know, I always enjoyed being around Bob.
Phil Hickerson.
And Phil, him and Conroos together.
All right.
Had some great matches with Phil and Dennis in Knoxville and other places too. Just fond of Knoxville because I was there for a long time and things were so good there. You know, a lot of guys wanted to come wrestle there because I guess it was known for party territory.
Any good stories from the party days?
Many stories. You know, I guess the whole thing was pretty much a party. You know, the wrestling business is like playing baseball or football. It's something most of us enjoy doing, and you can make a living at it, and you know, you can party hard if you want to, as long as you don't go too far with the partying.
Right. Have you seen a lot of guys go too far?
Well, not really myself. I mean, we've been surrounded with guys that's taken it too far.
Right.
That's OD'd and, you know, make an ass out of yourself. And I guess we've all done that from time to time. So.
What are some of your early memories of teaming up with the Mongolian Stomper?
Me and Stomper was champions there in Knoxville for a little while. Stomper is a tough man. I always liked to have him on my side, you know. If I got in trouble or something, you know, Stomper would be, if I was going to be in a fight, I guess I'd want him on my side.
Good guy in the ring?
Yeah. Stomper rough now. He beat the heck out of you. Had good matches with him, against him. Better lace him up tight, though.
Right.
He gonna come get you.
Memories of the Riches?
It was Davey Rich. I still see him and make a few trips with him from time to time. And Johnny Rich, they were good-looking boys, good in the ring, and enjoyed, you know, wrestling against them all the time. There was one time in Mobile, I won't go too far into that, but it got kind of funny.
Well, what happened?
Well, one of them was having a hard time getting in the ring.
Oh, okay. Partying or?
I'll tell you, I think maybe he had a little too much party. I don't know what happened to him. If he got scared or what happened, but he was having a little trouble getting in the ring. We got tickled at it.
Well, you actually went to Memphis, I think, in the late '80s as part of the stud stable, and you had a huge push down there. How did that all come about?
That was after our run in Alabama and Florida. We went there and wrestled for Jarrett and me and Robert, because we already had the stud stable thing that was alive and going well in Alabama. We just took it on to Tennessee with Jarrett and stayed there. I was there a little over a year, I think. But you know, me and Robert and I both had been in Tennessee at different times together and separate and wrestled with Jarrett. And of course, there, you know, in the earlier days, Grandpa Roy was the main man.
Was there any jealousy ever from some of the guys because you guys were pushed so heavily?
Probably was. You know, I didn't notice it a lot. You know, we didn't have a lot of people just come right out and bluntly say right to your face, you know, they was pissed off at you because you got a bigger push or something.
Right.
You know, we usually tried to mix it up and make sure that, you know, the other guys got it pushed too. You know, you'd like to have an exciting card from the beginning to the end. You know, the fans leave there, you want them going home telling their neighbors about it.
What are your thoughts on Jerry Jarrett as a promoter?
Jerry's a good promoter. Jerry been around the business a long time. As a matter of fact, me and Jerry, I guess one of my first matches was with Jerry Jarrett. We wrestled a tag team match, partners against a couple guys up there in Kentucky that really outclassed us. They'd done been around the block several times. We learned a lot from them. It was Frankie Kane and Bobby Hart.
Right.
They won as Mephisto and Dundee. And you know, both of those guys, especially Frank Kane, he come up around Dyersburg, where I'm from. He knew my daddy real well. He knew my family well. So he is interested in seeing me do good.
So he helped you out.
Yeah, you know, it made me look good, and Jerry too.
What about Bill Dundee? What was he like to be around?
Bill was all right. You know, he's an Australian boy. Had one of his partners, George Barnes, and another one was Johnny Gray from Australia. They was all good, hard-working boys. You know, Bill had him a big run through Tennessee, big star there. Him and Jerry Lawler, and you know, I've never been jealous of anybody else's success.
Right. What did you think of Jerry Lawler? Was he easy to get along with since he booked a lot? or do you feel he pushed himself too much on top and pretty much brought all the heels in to eat him down?
I don't. Jerry Lawler came to Alabama with me and my daddy. Nick Goulas would send us talent. He'd call my daddy every month and tell him, said, I've got this one and that one and that one and that one. I'm fixing to get rid of them. Are you interested in giving them a try? And one time he called. I got so and so and so on. I got this young boy named Jerry Lawler that Tojo's trained, and one of the Green boys that trained some, and fixing to let him go. Would you, and Dad said, well, send me so and so and this one, and send me that Lawler boy. And Jerry Lawler come down there, and this is like I was saying a while ago, Ricky Gibson, Dick Slater, Jerry Lawler, the guys like that is natural. He just catch on just that quick, boy. So it didn't take us long. We watch him in the ring and see the dollar signs.
Right, plus he could talk.
Yes.
What about your feud with Jeff Jarrett? What are your memories of your feud with Jeff?
Jeff, it's like a daddy, good, hard-working boy. We beat the hell out of Jeff. Robert he'd bust a Coke bottle over his head, and we beat him to death with a kendo stick. We'd done everything to that boy, and he's a good kid. He worked hard, and we all did the best we could to make money.
Scott Steiner, he was down there as a young...
Scott was there about that time, sure was a heck of a wrestler. One of my better wrestling on Memphis TV, man. I was trying to shoot with Scott a little bit, wrestle with him, son, because he's too good.
Right.
He's real strong.
What was the travel like back then in Memphis? You had TV and Saturday, and then Saturday night you had, the fairgrounds, I think?
Saturday you do TV in Memphis.
Right.
And come back and do Nashville house show at the fairgrounds. And then a lot of times you'd have Jonesboro or something the night before Friday night spot show, and then stay over and do the TV, or you do some miles in Tennessee.
Monday was Mid-South Coliseum?
Yeah. Tuesday would be Louisville, Wednesday Evansville, Thursday maybe a spot show somewhere, and Friday Jonesboro, Arkansas, and you'd stay over and do the TV and stuff. Huge territory. It's so big they could run 2 towns a night, and matter of fact, they did it for years. Because they had Birmingham there for when Nick and Roy was together before Jarrett took over.
Right.
You had Birmingham on Monday nights, and Memphis was on Monday night, and then Tuesday night it would be Louisville and Florence, Alabama, and and you had Huntsville. I mean, they had plenty enough towns to run 2 a night.
How did the idea of Sylvia come about?
That was Robert's idea, I guess. I really don't remember exactly. It just somehow it kind of came together, and Sylvia stepped into that spot as our second valet that went with us and carried the kendo stick, and she did a good job of smacking heads with that stick.
Yeah. How much fun were you having at that time period in the business? A lot of fun?
Yeah, it was okay. Not as much as times before, years before when we were in Knoxville and Florida and other places, because that was about in the late 80s, and I knew, that I was getting to the point that things were changing real big in the wrestling business. Wasn't the same anymore. And it was getting later on in my career, and I was contemplating at the time of maybe stepping out for a while.
Right. Gary Young, he actually came to the mix of the stud stable. What do you remember about Gary?
Gary was a nice guy. He wasn't there with us all that long, but Gary was a nice boy. He worked hard.
Okay. Also, Jerry Lawler, you got to work with Jerry once again in Memphis. What was he like to work with in the ring?
Jerry was always a pleasure to work with. Attitude was a little bit different in Memphis. Of course, he was the king then, and he had, was used to selling out the Coliseum every Monday night.
Big ego?
I sense a little bit of ego there. You know, it was different when he came to Alabama and wrestled. He was just starting, and he you know, and I was one of the bosses.
So he's humble.
I was the son of the boss.
Right.
You know, so was a little different then, but you know, like I said, Lawler was always a play. You know, hard work. You have a good match with Lawler. If you can't have a good match with Lawler, something wrong with you.
Huh. What about Mick Foley? What are your early memories of Mick?
Crazy man. He gonna kill himself. We watched him fall off that ring out there, and I said, man, my gosh. And my boy takes some unreal bumps, man. You know, I don't know how he made it as long as he did. I usually, if you get like me and the rest of us, he gonna hurt later on in life.
Did anybody ever tell him to tone down his style and say, Mick, you don't need to do that much?
I probably did. I wasn't one of them,
right.
And I'm sure Robert never wasn't one of them. You know, heck, we come up underneath their dad. You know, he'd talk his boys into doing hard ways.
Right. Yeah, that's what he was saying.
Lawler and Jack, he was Cactus Jack then, before he come Mankind. But he's one of those guys you talk him into pretty easy to doing the hard way.
Huh. Wow.
You know, Mankind, Cactus Jack, he'd do anything for the wrestling business.
Any good Memphis road stories?
Well, there's one that's, you know, I recall losing 3 close friends. That's not a good story. Shouldn't even bring it up. But my first big break was in the Tennessee territory with a guy named Dennis Hall. You know, we traveled all over Tennessee and Alabama, Kentucky, and wrestled against Lorenzo Perini and Gary Hart. But you know, the Tennessee territory it was such a long, hard grind. It was mostly, you know, it was more just work. All that is work. Wasn't like being in Knoxville. It was more of a party place. Every time you got home, you used to give out you wasn't up to partying.
All right. Do you think that you hit Memphis a year too late since the business was changing?
Might have. You know, I never had real great success in Memphis. Robert did. Ron did somewhat. I never did really hit the top in the Memphis end. I always enjoyed being there when I was there. But you know, like a lot of the guys, somehow I missed it on the Memphis end and being on the top part there for a while.
I guess, when did you realize that Terry Torres was running the problems?
Who's that?
Terry Torres? Is that how you pronounce it?
I remember that name, but I'm trying to place.
Yeah, I forgot exactly who it was.
He was in Tennessee with us about that.
I think so.
I remember that name, but
We'll come back to it. It doesn't matter.
yeah, I can't remember exactly. You know, I can't picture him.
Okay. What are your memories of the young Undertaker when he was down there in Memphis as Mark Calloway?
Mark wasn't there very long. He wrestled just a little bit, and then he was gone.
Went right to WCW.
Big boy, and he had great potential. He went on to Atlanta or New York, I guess.
Yeah.
And hit the big time.
Did you like going down to Texas working for Fritz?
We went from Tennessee, me and Robert, that's right. That was a long haul to Dallas from Nashville. Great fans down there, though. And you could tell that they had, at one time, that was a heck of a territory. That really did well. The fans, the atmosphere was there, but it was such a long haul to get there from Nashville. We rode a bus, and a couple times they flew us. One time was a disaster. They had an ice storm. We didn't get to make the show. It was up in the northern part of Texas or Oklahoma, and it was a disaster. But
What are your memories of the Von Erichs?
you know, them guys had a lot of talent. The whole family could really get the job done in the ring. Kevin had a heck of a body. Looked like $1 million. And the boys could get the job done in the ring. You know, they had their trouble, which is a sad deal. But I always respected their family. Same type of family that I come from. I mean, wrestling family, as far as wrestling goes. And they did well in Texas. So I always admired them and their family.
What are your thoughts on their whole reputation with drugs and the tragedies that happened with the family?
It's sad. I hated it. You know, and I know Fred's had a hard time dealing with that. Anybody would. And I hated it for him. It was a good talent in the ring.
Did you see anything ever odd with the Von Erichs? I know we did today with Rob, and he was telling us about Kerry Von Erich sometimes would be a little messed up before his matches and stuff. Did you have to ever deal with any of that?
He was didn't wrestle him a lot, a few times, but he was a little bit haywire. You know, especially if you're not right, it's hard to do things right. And I wrestled him one night in Jonesboro, and I got kicked. And it's kind of funny. I'll tell the story time to time. But you know, it's hard to say.
What was the story? You could say it if you want.
Well, you know, he had the foot problem.
Right.
And you know, he can't feel exactly how hard he's kicking you with that foot. I got kicked between the legs with the foot, and I went down. Well, that was it. I wasn't getting back up. You know, the referee or somebody out there was hard to get up. It said, no, I'm gonna stay right here.
Yeah.
You cover me and count me out. This is over.
What about primetime Brian Lee? Memories of Brian?
Brian was a big, strong man. He fit in good with the stud stable there for a while. Always together. Brian, you know, always liked Brian. I thought he was a little bit anxious to get on top, to go to New York, or for something that, I mean, you know, he maybe was grasping for something that he didn't really know what he wanted. But Brian was a big, strong boy that he could get the job done.
Who are your favorite guys to work with down in Memphis?
Well, in the beginning, I was there several different times. I recall working with guys called the Von Bronners, two German guys that had a manager named Saul Weingroff. They were outstanding. I watched them wrestle when I was a kid growing up, and they were against Buddy Fuller and the Hatfield boys, and they were awesome. And I enjoyed being in the ring with them. Make you work hard. But the Von Bronners, and then there was Ken Ramey and the interns, wrestled against them. Hickerson, Condry. Tojo was there a lot, you know, was partners with him some, wrestled against Tojo. And, you know, Memphis was loaded with great talent for years. Did big business. Had good talent. So, you know, me and Dennis Hall, like I said, first break came with Dennis. Nick Gulas gave us that. Lorenzo Perini was one of those guys, and Bobby Hart. It was a long list of guys that I wrestled against through the years in Tennessee that I enjoyed being in the ring with.
How'd you wind up in Smoky Mountain Wrestling for Jim Cornette? How'd that come about?
I lived in Knoxville, and and Jim and Tim Horner. I don't know who else that got Smoky Mountain started, and so it was easy to get the spot. Me and Robert, the Stud Stable, had an angle going with the Midnight Express right away. Jim put us right in the spot. Wasn't there a whole long time, but it was fun while it lasted.
What are your thoughts on Jim Cornette as a booker and promoter?
Jim's a good manager, very good talker. He knows what he's doing in the ring, and he gets great heat. He had me pissed off a few times with some of his interviews that he made. One in particular about Robert Gibson, Midnight Express. Jim was good, and he was doing a good job at Smoky Mountain. And of course, the guys that he's managed over the years, that him and his tennis racket did real well.
Right. What are your thoughts on Smoky Mountain Wrestling as a territory? Why do you think it didn't work as?
I finished up with Smoky Mountain before it went out of business.
Okay.
And I don't know. I heard several different stories. Run out of money. Things just kind of got out of hand. I don't know exactly what happened. I know that it finally folded up, but it was a shame.
Who are some of the guys you worked with down in Smoky Mountain Wrestling? I know you had a program with Rock and Roll Express, Ricky Morton, and Robert Gibson. What are your memories of those matches?
Yeah, we had some good matches. As a matter of fact, I saw a tape on one of our matches. If I'm not mistaken, it was at Freedom Hall in Johnson City.
Right.
Looking back at it, it was a darn good match. I mean, it was.
Crowd was into it.
Yeah. They're good boys, Ricky and Robert.
What was Cornette like as a I guess outside the ring, behind the scenes? Was he a good boss?
Yes.
How did you wind up in WCW?
Robert, Sid Vicious got a spot down there, and Sid had came to Alabama and wrestled with us before he became Sid Vicious. Humongous, I think, and I think he just went as Sid for a while. They're sitting in downtown Bruno with him.
Right.
And things was going good there for a while, and he liked Robert. Robert liked him, and then after things split up there in Alabama, Sid went on, but him and Robert stayed in touch, and they worked them out a deal to where Robert became the Colonel Parker thing and managed Sid and went to WCW in Atlanta. When Robert went down there, he told me that if he could get me in, he would. If he found a chance, a spot to get me in, that he would, and he did. I guess after he's there for a year or so. I don't know what happened. Sid left, and they put him with Steve Austin and a couple of other guys, and they was having these bunkhouse matches, and they wanted a bunkhouse match for Dusty Rhodes in Chicago, the Spring Stampede. And they said, well, we need a bunkhouse man. We need a bunkhouse wrestler, and they had to put him in a bunkhouse match with Dustin. Who can we get to be bunkhouse? Nobody had anybody in mind, and Robert said, well, I know somebody would love to have him. Jimmy Golden. And most of the guys that he was booking with at the time knew me, and they all said, well, where's Jimmy at? What's he doing? Call him. So when I came in one night, there was a message on the machine, and Robert, give me a call, I got a spot for you. called him up and he said, "We need a guy that looks like this."
All right.
I said, "That's me."
Huh. What are your memories of teaming up with Dick Slater and Terry in WCW?
It was a lot of fun. Terry Funk and Bunkhouse Buck just made a good match.
Definitely.
And Dirty Dick too. You know, Dick had the suspenders on too, and that's kind of Dick's style also. And it was good with both of them. You know, I hated that it ended.
You also, you guys had a lot of good matches with Booker T and his brother Stevie Ray.
Yes.
What are your memories of those matches with Harlem Heat?
It was good matches. They're good boys, big strong guys. All our matches down there were a lot of fun and brings back memories. Harlem Heat, I guess, was a little bit green at the time. They hadn't been in the business as long as me and Dick, Terry, and some of them, but we did all right.
Do you think it was hard for Robert to stay out of the ring and just manage, or do you think it was easier for him? Or
I don't think he had any problem with that at all.
Right, just good payday and not bumping.
Right.
Right. Did you like the gimmick? Did you like the gimmick that you did?
Bunkhouse?
Yeah, Bunkhouse.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Bunkhouse is a lot of fun. You know, it's totally different from Jimmy Golden, and it's like you can relax a little bit more. It's for some reason, I don't know. It's hard to describe. But,
right.
You know, I found it to be easy.
What are some of your memories of your matches with Dusty Rhodes?
The Spring Stampede in Chicago, it was a good one. Got it on tape. Watched it back several times. Dustin's good. Dustin was, you know, a chip off the old block, just like Daddy had. But he wanted things so, and that's the way we made it.
Easy to work with in the ring?
Yes. It's like his dad wrestled against his daddy.
Right. Eric Bischoff.
You know, it's funny. Eric was the boss at WCW. The main man, I guess. You know, one day you don't remember Eric. Eric was a cameraman in Memphis, Channel 5, when we was there in our early career. I didn't remember Eric. I never met him in Memphis, and didn't know any of the camera guys really. But Eric's obviously a good TV man. He knows what he's doing there. And then he was the boss there in Atlanta, and had all kind of guys that was working in the office for him that I thought was as good as you could get. We'll start with Gagne, Greg Gagne. Been around the business all his life. His daddy was a big-time promoter in Minnesota.
Did you ever work AWA?
Yes, a couple of times. Then he had Mike Graham, same thing. Been around the wrestling business all his life. Bill Dundee, very good. Robert Fuller, been around the business all his life. And then there was another one or two. How could you go wrong? You got 4 or 5 of the finest minds that's seen it all.
Right.
If you're going to put a show together, a good show, they should be able to do it. He fired Greg Gagne. I don't know what the argument was about. You know, for me, to fire somebody like Greg, it'd have to be something pretty serious before I'd fire somebody like that. You know, but my spot at WCW ended before it all folded up.
Right.
You know, so I don't know really what happened down there. They had all the talent in the world. You know, Hulk Hogan and Macho Man. They had Bunkhouse and you name it.
Memories of your matches with the Blue Bloods. I think it was Regal and Eaton.
Yes. Steve Regal. You know, I respect all them British wrestlers because they all go through a very tough school, Wigan's school over in London, I guess, some part of England. You make it through that school, you're going to be very good. And, you know, the boys that ever came out of England were very tough, could really wrestle, and, you know, I always respect them. I always must about had all of them had great matches with them. There was a British boy by the name of Tony Charles, Billy Robinson. He came out of there about the same time with him. And Tony was a great friend of mine. And Steve was a super nice guy. So, you know, I always enjoyed being around him.
You got to work with Arn Anderson as well, once again. Was working with Arn this time around a lot different from when you worked him down in Alabama? It was just more polished, I guess?
Yeah, Arn, you know, he had a lot more experience. But Arn was one of those naturals from the very beginning. You know, we could see it in him down there in Dothan, Alabama, when Bob Armstrong scalped him. Took his hair off. He's doing jobs down there, but Arn, you could just tell he had it in. Good-looking boy, got the body, the build for it, and just a heck of an athlete. You know, and by the time we got together up there in Atlanta in WCW, then he just had all that much more experience and well polished. And Arn just, you know, a super nice guy. Always enjoyed being around Arn. Loved to work with him.
What about Ricky Steamboat? You got to work with Ricky.
He's a super nice guy.
Yeah.
What a gentleman. And you know, what an athlete in the ring. I mean, he could do it all.
And his son's wrestling too now. He just broke into the business.
Yeah. I haven't met the son of him.
He's here today.
Is he?
Yeah, he's actually working tonight. There's an indie show here tonight.
Okay.
So.
Well, if he's half as good as his daddy, he'd be doing great.
Yeah. What about Steve Austin? What are your memories of working with Steve back in WCW?
Steve is a heck of an athlete.
Did you see the potential? Did you know he's going to be a big star?
Well, little did we know he was going to be stone cold and blow the roof off in New York. But you could darn sure tell that Steve Austin had potential to go places. You know, there's a lot of guys down there that could do that. Steve was one of them.
You also got to work with Dusty and Dustin together as a tag team. What are your memories of working with those guys together?
It was great. It was a perfect angle. You know, we beat the hell out of the kid until he couldn't stand it no more, and Daddy stepped in, Dusty, and it was a little deal we did down there in Macon, Georgia, TV, and Dusty come out to help Dustin at the ring, blow the roof off. Fans went nuts, but it was all set right.
Right.
You know, if it's not set right, it don't. You got the players. If you got the players and it's all set right, then when you have the game, boom, you got fireworks.
Right. How did things change in WCW when Hogan came into the company?
Hogan was the big star. You know, came from New York, and you know, I'd sit back and look at that and said, man, the talent they got here. You know, they're loaded with talent. And Hogan, you know, was the man that come from New York, and you know, I never knew Hogan all that well, but my goodness, you know, what few times I got in the ring with Hogan was as nice as me as he could be. Real nice.
You also were involved in a War Games in WCW. What are your memories of the War Games match?
I'm trying to recall this one now.
Yeah, I forgot who you worked. I just know it was the two rings with the double cage.
Two rings of double cage.
Yeah. One of the pay-per-views. I don't remember which pay-per-view it was, though. I'll come back to that.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time remembering that one, too.
Memories of working with Brian Knobbs and Jerry Saggs, the Nasty Boys.
Yeah. That was a battle. They was fun to watch. I watched him in Chicago against Mankind and Max Payne.
Street fight.
God almighty.
Yeah.
I mean, they hit each other with everything but the kitchen sink. I guess they picked it up and it's too heavy.
Huh.
Wanted somebody didn't get killed. And it was a knockdown, drag out. It was a dead gum fight, but.
When you worked with them in the ring, were they pretty stiff with you? Or?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And you give right back?
But you got that, it's not only been the nasty boys. You're going to learn to work with everybody. You got some of them that's a piece of cake. You got some of them that's a bitch. So you got to learn to work with all of them.
Right.
All the way through.
What about Ming? What was it like to work with Ming? I know you guys maybe weren't in the ring together, but...
Yes, we were.
Right.
At one time, man, another boy wrestled against him and Barbarian. I was hoping to God it didn't piss him off.
Would you consider him one of the toughest guys in the business?
I'd say Ming, if I was going to be in a fight, I'd want him on my side.
Huh.
Ming is probably as bad as they come.
That's what they say.
Yeah.
What about Jim Duggan? You worked with Jim a lot?
Yeah. Jim, same thing. He's big, tough, ex-pro football player. One of his hands make two of mine. Hit you one time, you gonna know it.
Right. Vader?
And Vader, I didn't wrestle Vader.
Were you there for the Vader-Orndorff fight?
Yeah.
You were there? What are your memories of
As
that?
a matter of fact, me and Jim Duggan sat there talking to each other when the shit broke out over there. And me and Jim's looking at each other and he was going, man, looks like it's going to be an exciting night at center stage. And I never did see any of the fight. The argument started in front of me and Jim, and it broke up. And then later on, a few minutes later, we could hear the fight down the hallway. Didn't last very long.
Yeah. Rod Fuller was telling us that the next day, I guess you guys were getting beer at 7-Eleven. Vader pulled up with the big black eye.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
great. Memories of Sherry Martel?
Sherry was a good friend. I met Sherry in New Orleans, wrestling for Bill Watts, back in about 78, 79, right along in there. I think Sherry's from Birmingham. At that time, she was in New Orleans, and she was just a fan at that time. And then I left Louisiana and went back to Tennessee, and then I saw Sherry again. Was at WCW, and it took me a little bit. She even said to me in the bar one night, "You don't remember me." And it took me a few minutes to remember where I had met Sherry. And Sherry was a nice girl, and sad that she's gone. She was super nice to me.
Was she wild outside the ring?
She liked to have a good time.
Right.
Maybe she went overboard a few times. We all do. Have one too many to drink.
Right.
But she just as nice as me she could be.
Memories of Lex Luger?
Well, I only knew Lex at WCW, and I never did wrestle against Lex that I can recall. Just knew him from around the dressing room. But he'd speak to me. He was a pretty nice guy.
Why do you think you went from such a big push in '94 to barely anything towards the end of that year? You had a big push.
I don't know what happened. I know that there's a lot of the boys from New York was starting to come in, and they was coming out with the NWO thing, and other things started to happen, and Bunkhouse had kind of seen his heyday there. He had his Bunkhouse match with Dustin and a few others with the Harlem Heat and the Nasty Boys and this, that, and the other, and they started moving on to other things. They had so much talent that they could put a lot of stuff together if they wanted to.
Were you ever frustrated at all with not getting the big push?
Not really. because it's about money.
Right, exactly. As
You
long as
know, I've seen my glory days when I was a young man. Hell, I had plenty of that. I was only interested in one thing, is just making a living.
right.
I don't care about all that beeswax stuff, and arguing back and forth. My goodness, for some of the money some of them guys is making, I'd do about anything I was told.
What about Mike Eunice? You teamed up with him for a little bit.
Yeah.
What do you remember?
He's from Minneapolis too, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was a good boy. Big, solid, rough kid. And, matter of fact, it was me and him that wrestled Ming and Barbarian. And boy, they was hard at it. I was impressed.
Huh.
Yeah, and nice boy.
What are your thoughts on Scott Hall and Kevin Nash?
You know what? Scott came to Alabama and wrestled with us down there before he went to New York. Scott, I think he played football. He was a heck of an athlete, big, strong guy. He wasn't there very long, and he left and went on to New York, and from there, I don't know. I wrestled against him one time at WCW. Me and another guy. I think it was the Ellis kid again or something. I'm not sure. So I never really Kevin Nash, really don't know him. I just met him the one time there, so but I knew Scott a little bit. But I'd heard a lot about Nash. He was a basketball player at UT. A famous story about him up at the Rupp Arena in Lexington. He was playing University of Kentucky, and I think he got fouled out. He got thrown out of the game or something. And the story was, and the fans was all booing him, and booing the UT players and stuff. And Kevin was walking off the court. He gave it to both sides.
All right.
Wow. So the house really come down then. I thought that was funny.
Why did you end up leaving WCW?
I had a contract. 94 and 95, about 2 years. And my contract ran out, and then it was just independent shows after that, here and there, a nightly deal. Didn't have the contract anymore, and then first thing you know, they was out of business. I wasn't going back anymore.
Did you ever try to contact WWF or WWE? Did they ever try to contact you?
Yeah. I talked to Terry Garvin. That was before WCW days.
Right.
Terry was in office up there. I've known Terry for years. Ronnie. And it was a long list of guys to go into New York. I could have probably told him to put my name down on the list. Never was really gung ho about going to New York. It's probably a big mistake. That's where the money's at. Being an old Southern country boy, I'd get lost up there in New York. I always enjoyed being down south. And if you work in New York, it's long, hard trips, and you may make great money, but how many times do you see home?
All right.
It's something to think about, And I always did pretty well in the South or wherever it might have been at the time.
Were you surprised when WCW went out of business?
Yeah. Like I said, with all the talent they had and all the great minds that they had, you thought they'd have been able to make that thing click.
All right. Did you ever want to try to move into the booking role? Or did you just
Yeah, I did. Not until just here recently. The past few years ago, we did the thing in Knoxville called Rocky Top.
Right.
And a guy named James Strange. Pritchard was there. Condrey was there. And Ricky Morton, and a bunch of good guys. But James asked me to do the booking for him there, and as long as it lasted, it worked out well. I thought we had some good stuff. I found myself getting into it. It was something I could get my teeth into. Robert and Ron and Bob and all the guys that we was associated with years of past, all tried to get me to do the booking thing for years. I always turned it down because you know, it's going to take up too much of my time, and I was having too good of a time just being one of the boys.
Right.
But I did find it to be very interesting at Rocky Top. It's just too bad it didn't last very long.
Any good Robert Fuller stories?
It's 1,000. Robert Fuller's a real character. He always has been all his life. I've known him since little boys, you know. This comes with the family, I guess, Welch blood. Gosh, yeah, Robert. It's hilarious. We've had some great times together up and down the road. Many a laugh. Robert hurt his knee one time, and it swelled up. He had a lot of water on his knee, and I was carrying a lot of the load to help him out because he was hurt. So, but Robert, he's always been fun to be with, and Ron too. You know, I always admired him like their daddy. He passed down a lot of that knowledge to them. I tried to get as much as I could from him.
Do you still watch wrestling to this day? You don't watch it at all anymore?
Well, it depends.
Right.
You know, I don't watch it unless if I see somebody on there that I know it's interesting to me, I'll watch it some.
What are your thoughts on all of the deaths over the past few years, and which in particular hit you the hardest?
Man. Blind Brian was, you know, I thought was a nice looking, well-mannered man. Was sad. Had a wife and a couple kids.
Right.
Chris Benoit, he was so nice to me. You know, I guess there'd been anybody that treated me any nicer than Chris, and I hardly even knew Chris. I just knew of him and met him down there at WCW. It was shocking. I don't know what happened, what the details was on all that. We've been losing a lot of guys, different things, drugs, OD, and car wrecks, and you name it.
You ever watch UFC at all? No. Would you ever want to write a book?
I thought about it.
What about ribs? Any favorite ribs that you've witnessed or actually done to somebody?
Yeah. I guess one in particular that it wasn't to one of the other guys, that was one of the fans that sticks out. We had a big laugh about down in Dothan. But, you know, we're always ribbing each other in the car and in the dressing room at different times. There's many stories of ribs that we had pulled on each other. I guess I've had as many pulled on me that that's funny.
Right.
You know, I wasn't such a ribber, but I always enjoyed watching a lot of the ribs and stuff that went on.
I guess, what are your favorite road stories as far as like road trips? Any that stick out in mind that were crazy or insane?
Not really. You know, it was just that all of them was exciting. It seemed like every night he's on the road somewhere and something going on. But you know, we'd end up racing and stuff on the road. And sometimes had the police pull us over down in Alabama one night. and Jim White. I don't know if you know him or not.
No.
That was wrestling in Alabama with us, and I'd give him my right-hand signal light. I'd get him to pull over a little bit, and once he'd pull over, I won't talk to him, and then buzz on around him, down there, and blow my horn at him, and give him a hard time.
Harley Race told us a story. I don't know if you ever heard about it. He would always, I guess, speeding. You ever travel with Harley at all?
Yeah, I had a race with him one night, me and Ricky,
Really?
down in Florida. He had I think it was a Trans Am or a Firebird. It was all souped up. It was really fast, and I was driving a Thunderbird, me and Ricky, and it was coming back from Miami going to Tampa, and Harley pulled up beside us in that Firebird. He didn't drive it every night, but he pulled beside us and we took off together.
Huh.
Then he was way out of sight down there before we see the big pow fire blew out of him.
Wow.
It was backfire, But he had this fast car that was really souped up, and he just ran off and left us. And then no Harley, he'd go.
He said that if he would ever get chopped or chased by the cops, he would try to outrun them sometimes. Or he would carry a blade, and if they'd pull him over, he'd blade himself and tell the cops he was going to a hospital.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Do you enjoy doing the nostalgia shows?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the lack of kayfabe today in wrestling? Do you think it pretty much killed the business?
Well, it's hard to say. Vince, New York still doing big, and TNA does okay, I guess, and ECW, I guess, it does all right. The business is not dead,
Right.
for sure.
Do you still have a passion for it?
For kayfabe,
No, do you still have a passion for the business?
yeah.
If TNA were to call you, or even WWE, would you be able to go today if they said, we got some ideas, can you still go in the ring?
Yeah, somewhat. I'm not the man that I was.
Right.
I've got some age on me now, but I still enjoy entertaining, and I'm still lucky enough to be able to do it some. And I got a son that's just finished with school, and I'd like to see him do it maybe some.
Well, I guess as far as injuries go, what are some of the injuries that you've suffered in this business?
I had to take a year off back in about '79 with the lower back. I guess we all have that. My back got so bad that it was a doctor in Knoxville that tried to convince me I had a ruptured disc. My back was bad, but I hadn't had that operation yet. But I had to take a year off and give me time to get some rest so I could get it well. I really didn't know what to do to fix it at the time. So
Right.
it took me a while. But came back from that, and I've been just knocked out, and just bruised and beat up pretty seriously. I've been lucky, I've never had any real serious injuries yet.
What do you miss most and least about being a full-time wrestler?
Money.
Right. Huh.
I miss the business. But going every night, it's all I knew.
What do you do now for work?
Well, I'm still wrestling some, on the weekends. And me and a boy named Andy Varney, he wrestled Doink the Clown. We have a cleaning business together. We clean carpet and Pigeon Forge, anything else that we can. 2 or 3 times a year. Does pretty good for us.
Right.
Other than that, that's all I'm doing right now.
I've read somewhere that you're a cousin of Katie Holmes. Is that true? Not true? Okay. That was a weird question to throw out there. As far as in the future, where do you see yourself in the next 10 years?
Well, it's a good question. I don't know. I'm going to be winding the wrestling thing up one of these days. Won't be too much longer. But I got a boy that's 6'8", about 300 pounds. He's an All-American basketball player from Maryville College. He got the size, got the look. He just needs some experience.
I guess, is there anything you want to say to your fans out there that you never had a chance to say to before?
It's been great. And none of it had been possible without the fans. They're my kind of people.
Right.
They've been fun to watch. I'm sure they've enjoyed watching me and the other guys, and it's been fun watching them, because wrestling fans, boy, they get out of hand sometimes. They get carried away, and I did too. When I was a kid watching my family, I was into it.
Who are your favorite guys to work? If you were to put together a tape for your grandkids of maybe 1 or 2 matches, what matches would they be?
Well, I'd say, if I had a tape of that match with Dory Funk Jr., I'd say it'd been one of them.
Right.
It was a good one. Jack Briscoe had a tough match with him. He liked to kill me. It was a good one.
Right.
And I always enjoyed matches with Hickerson and Condrey. Phil Hickerson, Dennis Condrey. There's been some good ones. Danny Hodge. You remember Danny Hodge?
Yeah, old timer.
I wrestled him in Knoxville one time. And, it was a good match. It was an honor to be in the ring with Danny Hodge. Man knew what he was doing. Nelson Royal.
Right.
Something like the Von Brauners, guys like that. Don't have tape of any film on all those older matches. I wish I did. Those would be some of the matches that I would show to my kids, grandkids.
Any regrets?
A few mistakes. Never regret being in the wrestling business. Been around the world twice. Seen all kind of things. It's been an exciting life. Made me good money.
You still get noticed when you go out in public?
Yeah, especially around Knoxville.
Right.
They remember all. They asked me about Ron and Robert, Bullet Bob, Ronnie Garvin, Tora Tanaka, Mongolian Stomper, you name it. All them guys. They never forget. These are people that, well, some of them's older than me, some's younger than me. They remember that era, right through the 70s, of Southeastern Championship Wrestling.
Did you ever work with Brody at all?
Bruiser Brody.
Yeah.
Yes.
What are your memories of Frank?
Texas. Nice guy. He was to me.
Right.
I was only around him a little bit. Big, strong, good-looking guy. Got a lot of attention, man.
Definitely.
What I knew of Bruiser Brody, I liked.
When you went over to Japan, what company did you work for? Was it All Japan or was it New Japan?
New Japan.
New Japan for Inoki?
Yeah, Moto.
Oh, okay.
Wasn't there a guy named Moto?
Yeah.
That booked out of Los Angeles? Nick Goulas contacted him and set me and Sam Bass up to go.
What was it like?
In '71. That's the trip we was talking about where Bruno was there,
Right.
and Don DiNucci and the Funks and the Murdochs and all of them.
As far as when you got to Japan, how different was it as far as culture shock goes? And obviously when you get in the ring over there, the guys are a lot stiffer. Did it take a lot of adjusting?
A little bit. I guess I've been accused of being stiff too.
So
But I did notice it. In Japan, things was tight.
Right.
Over here, every once in a while, you'd be in some things that'd be real easy, piece of cake.
Right.
But in Japan, it's like with some of the guys over here. It's like I said, I felt like I had to try to learn to work with all of them.
Well, I want to thank you for being here with us today, and it was a great interview.
Thank you.
Cool.
Enjoyed it.
Thanks.